There's a generation of people walking around right now that nobody talks about. Everybody's got an opinion on the boomers. Everybody's got a theory about the millennials. And Gen Z, God bless them, they film everything so you can't miss them even if you tried. But there's a whole group of people sandwiched in between, born somewhere between 1965 and 1980, and they are the quietest, toughest, most confusing generation I've ever watched grow up. And I watched them grow up, literally. They came through my shoe repair shop in Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, starting in the mid-70s. Little kids with apartment keys on strings around their necks, dragging in their school shoes with the soles flapping, no parent in sight. They'd sit in the chair by the window and wait while I fixed their shoes, and they didn't fidget, didn't whine, didn't ask me to call their mother. They just waited, quietly, like little adults trapped in children's bodies. I didn't know what to call them then. Nobody did. Now they call them Generation X, and I've got 10 things to tell you about them, 10 truths, because I think they're the most misunderstood people alive, and most of them will never tell you this themselves. That's part of the problem, and that's a lesson that's very hard to unlearn. I see it now in the Gen X adults I know. They don't ask for help. They don't lean on people. And if you offer help, they get uncomfortable, like you've seen them naked. That independence everyone admires, it started as loneliness. And somewhere deep down, for a lot of them, it still is. If you're Gen X and you're listening to this, asking for help is not weakness. I know you learned the opposite. I know that empty apartment taught you to handle everything yourself. But carrying everything alone isn't strength, it's habit. And habits can be changed. Truth number 2, they don't trust institutions, and they have every reason not to. I remember 1974. I was sitting in my shop listening to the radio. I always had the radio on. AM, WINS. And Nixon resigned. Watergate. The President of the United States had been lying, and everybody knew it, and the kids heard it. They heard their parents talking at the dinner table. They heard the teachers talking in the hallway. And the message they absorbed was, the people in charge will lie to your face and expect you to thank them for it. Then it kept going. Iran-Contra, the AIDS crisis, which the government ignored until thousands were dead, the savings and loan scandal, the dot-com crash, the 2008 financial crisis. Truth number 1, they raised themselves, and it cost them more than anyone realizes. In my neighborhood, Bay Ridge, 1970s, there was a kid named Danny Kowalski. Polish family, lived above a deli on 73rd Street. Danny was maybe 9 or 10 the first time he came into my shop alone. Not with his mother, not with his father, alone. He had a key on a shoelace around his neck and a pair of sneakers that needed regluing. I said, "Where's your mother, Danny?" He said, "Work." I said, "Your father." He said, "Work." And that was that. No drama, no complaint, just a fact. His parents were at work, and he was handling his own business at 9 years old. Danny wasn't unusual. He was typical. By the late 70s, almost every kid who came into my shop after 3 o'clock came in alone. They'd let themselves into their apartments with those keys around their necks, make themselves a snack, do their homework on the kitchen counter, and wander the neighborhood until dinner. Nobody was watching them. Nobody was calling to check on them. And these kids, they figured it out. They made their own food, settled their own fights, bandaged their own knees. They didn't have a choice. But here's what nobody talks about. When you teach a child to survive alone, you also teach them that being alone is normal. Every decade, some big institution, the government, the banks, the corporations, did something that proved Gen X right. Don't trust the system. The system doesn't care about you. A young man named Marcus Webb came into my shop in the mid-'80s. Must have been 17, 18. He worked at a Circuit City on 86th Street. Good worker. Showed up early. Never called in sick. The store laid off half their staff in 1991, and Marcus was gone. Didn't matter that he was reliable. Didn't matter that customers liked him. He was a line item on a spreadsheet, and somebody deleted him. Marcus learned at 22 what it took his father 40 years to learn. The company doesn't love you back. That's Gen X in a sentence. They work hard, harder than most people give them credit for. But they don't work for loyalty. They work for competence. They want to be so good that when the layoffs come, and they always expect the layoffs to come, they're the last ones standing. I used to see it in my shop. The Gen X customers who'd come in to get their work shoes resold. Good shoes, expensive shoes, because they understood that looking competent was part of being competent. They'd tell me about their jobs, and it was always the same undercurrent. I'm good at what I do, and I don't expect anyone to notice or reward me for it. And that's fine. They made peace with the indifference of the system. What they couldn't make peace with was incompetence. Nothing enraged them more than a boss who didn't know how to do the job. And listen, this is useful advice for everybody, not just Gen X. Don't put your faith in a company. Put your faith in your skills. Learn things that are portable, that go with you when you walk out the door. The company is a vehicle, not a home. When it stops going where you need to go, get out and find another one. Truth number 3, they use humor as armor, and they don't even know they're doing it. The funniest generation I've ever met, bar none. And I say that as an Italian man who grew up with uncles who could make a funeral hilarious. Gen X's humor is different though. It's not joyful, It's defensive. It's the joke you tell so nobody sees you bleeding. There was a girl, a woman now obviously, named Stacy Brennan. Irish family, red hair, freckles, mouth like a sailor. She used to come into my shop with her mother's pumps for rehealing. Stacy was maybe 13, 14, and she was the funniest kid I'd ever met. I don't know if it helped. She grew up, moved away, became something in advertising, I think. But I think about her whenever I see a Gen Xer cracking jokes while their life is falling apart. The humor is brilliant, but it's also a lock on a door that needs to be opened. If you're using humor to avoid feeling things, and you know if you are, try this. Next time something hurts, sit with it for 5 minutes before you make the joke. Just 5 minutes. Let yourself feel it. The joke will still be there afterward, but the feeling needs to go first, or it goes underground, and underground feelings rot. Truth number 4. They parent the opposite of how they were raised, and it terrifies them. This is the one that breaks my heart. I've watched Gen X parents, the ones who came home to empty apartments, who heated up their own TV dinners, who didn't see their parents until 7, 8 at night. I've watched them become the most attentive, present, hovering parents you've ever seen. They swore they would never leave their kids the way they were left. And they didn't. They drove to every practice, sat through every recital, tracked every grade online, texted their kids every hour. And now, some of them are terrified they went too far the other direction. A customer of mine, a woman named Janet Haggerty, came in around 2015 to pick up a pair of boots. Her daughter was in college, first year. Janet looked terrible. I said, "You all right?" She said, "My daughter called me 4 times yesterday because she couldn't figure out how to do laundry." And Janet wasn't angry. She was guilty because she realized I was doing my own laundry at 8. My daughter is 18 and she can't separate whites from colors. What did I do wrong? Here's what she did wrong, and I say this gently. She gave her daughter everything she didn't have and accidentally took away the one thing she did have: resourcefulness. The ability to figure it out when nobody's there to help. That's the gift that came from the empty apartment. The only gift. And Gen X parents, in their love and their fear, sometimes forget to pass it on. If you're a parent, Gen X or otherwise, your job is not to make sure your child never struggles. Your job is to make sure they know they can survive this struggle. There's a difference between neglect and letting go. Find it. Your kids need you to find it. Truth number 5. They're the last generation that knows how to be bored. This one sounds small. It isn't. Gen X grew up without the internet, without smartphones, without 500 channels. They had 3 networks, maybe HBO if their parents could afford it, a library card, and whatever was happening outside. And when nothing was happening outside, and there were a lot of Saturday afternoons when nothing was happening outside, they were bored. Truly, deeply, stare at the ceiling, bored. I remember a kid named Chris Papadopoulos, Greek family, father owned a diner on Fifth Avenue. Chris used to hang around my shop on Saturday afternoons in the summer of '79 because he had nothing to do. Literally nothing. His friends were at the beach. His parents were at the diner. And he was 12 years old with an empty afternoon and no plan. So he'd sit in my shop and watch me work. And after a few weeks, he started asking questions. How do you know which leather to use? Why does that stitch go that direction? What happens if you cut the sole too short? He wasn't interested in cobbling. He became a mechanical engineer, ended up designing HVAC systems. But those boring Saturday afternoons taught him how to watch, how to study a process, how to think about how things fit together. And out of that boredom came everything: creativity, daydreaming, weird projects and dumb ideas, and hours spent taking apart a radio to see how it worked. Boredom is where curiosity lives. When you eliminate boredom, you eliminate the space where the brain starts generating its own entertainment, which is really just another word for thinking. I see it in my shop. I saw it, I should say, before I retired. The Gen X customers would sit in the chair and wait, and they'd look around, notice things on the wall, read the newspaper I left out, start a conversation. The younger customers would sit down and immediately pull out their phones. They couldn't be alone with their own thoughts for 7 minutes while I rehealed a shoe. Put your phone in a drawer for 1 hour today. Not forever, 1 hour. And see what your brain does when it has nothing to look at. You might be surprised. You might be uncomfortable. Good. Discomfort is where growth lives. Gen X learned that in 1,000 boring Saturday afternoons, and it made them some of the most creative problem solvers I've ever known. Truth number 6, they are fiercely loyal to people, not organizations. Gen X doesn't trust companies. I told you that. But people, the right people, they will go to war for. The friendships they formed as kids, the ones they built when their parents weren't around. Those became their real family, their survival network. Danny Kowalski, the kid with the key around his neck. He's in his late 50s now, still friends with the same 4 guys he ran around with in 1977. They're all over the country now. One in Phoenix, one in Atlanta, one still in Bay Ridge, one in some suburb of Chicago. But they talk every week, for almost 50 years. Because when you're 9 years old and alone and scared, and your friend is the only person who understands what that feels like, that bond doesn't break. If you have people like that in your life, people who knew you before you became whoever you are now, hold on to them. Call them this week. Not a text, a call. Hear their voice. Remind them they mattered. Because the older you get, the harder it is to make friends who knew you when you were still figuring out who you were. Those people are irreplaceable. Gen X knows this. They just don't talk about it. Truth number 7. They carry guilt about their parents that they'll never admit. This is the one nobody discusses. Gen X watched their parents work themselves into the ground. And even though they resented the empty house, even though they wished somebody had been home when they got off the bus, most of them understand now, as adults, as parents themselves, that their parents were doing the best they could with what they had. And that understanding creates a very specific kind of guilt. Because you can't be angry at someone who was trying. You can't blame someone who was working 2 jobs to keep the lights on. But the hurt is still there. The loneliness was real. The feelings are contradictory and they don't resolve. And Gen X, being Gen X, just swallows them and moves on. A man named Kevin Cho used to bring his mother's shoes into my shop. Korean family, lived on Bay Ridge Avenue. Kevin was in his 30s then, early 2000s. His mother was elderly, very sweet, barely spoke English. Kevin would translate for her. And one day, while she was browsing the shoe display, Kevin said to me, quietly, "My mother worked in a garment factory 16 hours a day when I was growing up. I came home to an empty apartment every day from age 6 to age 16. And I'm only now realizing I'm still angry about it. And I feel terrible for being angry because she did it for me." I said, "Kevin, both things are true. She sacrificed for you, and you lost something because of that sacrifice. You don't have to pick one. You can hold both." He looked at me like nobody had ever given him permission to feel 2 things at once. And that's the thing. Gen X wasn't raised to feel two things at once. They were raised to pick one and shut up about it. If your parents did their best and it still wasn't enough, that's okay. You're allowed to love them and grieve what you didn't get at the same time. Those aren't opposite feelings. They're the same feeling, seen from two sides. Truth number 8. They're aging and nobody's paying attention. The oldest Gen Xers are 60 now. 60! And the youngest are in their mid-40s. Their parents are dying or in nursing homes. Their kids are leaving or can't afford to leave, which is its own kind of stress. They're sandwiched between caregiving for the old and financing the young. And they're doing it quietly because that's what they do. They handle it. I had a customer, still have her actually, she calls me sometimes, a woman named Lorraine Fujimoto, Japanese American, grew up in Sunset Park, worked in hospital administration for 30 years, classic Gen X, never complains, always put together. The kind of woman who shows up to Thanksgiving with 3 dishes and acts like she didn't just work a 12-hour shift. Lorraine called me in 2022. She was 54, and for the first time in all the years I'd known her, her voice cracked. Her mother had dementia. Her 26-year-old son had moved back home after losing his job. Her husband had been laid off, and she was holding all 3 of them up while still going to work every day and pretending everything was fine, because that's what she'd been doing since she was 8 years old. I said, "Lorraine, who's holding you up?" She went quiet. Then she said, "Nobody, Sal. Nobody ever has." And she wasn't self-pitying. She was stating a fact. The same way Danny Kowalski stated a fact at 9 years old when he said his parents were at work. Flat, practiced, like the loneliness was just weather. But here's the thing, handling it alone is what's killing them. Heart disease, anxiety, depression, alcohol. Gen X drinks more than any other generation. And I'll tell you why. Because a beer at the end of the day is the one thing that doesn't ask you for anything. It doesn't need you to be strong. It doesn't need you to fix anything. It just makes the noise quieter for an hour. And I understand that. I do. I drank too much in my 50s and 60s, after the shop fire, after the rebuilding. When the exhaustion hit and I didn't have anyone to tell. My sister Rosa caught it. She said, "Sal, you're having 3 glasses of wine a night, and you used to have 1. That's not relaxing, that's hiding." She was right. If you're using something, a drink, a screen, work, anything, to numb instead of feel, somebody needs to tell you. And since Gen X won't ask, I'm telling you, you're not fine. "I'm fine" is the most dangerous sentence in the English language, and Gen X says it more than anyone. Truth number 9. They respect competence above everything. Don't come at a Gen Xer with a title or a credential or a corner office. They don't care. Show them you can do the work. That's it. That's the whole test. This comes from growing up in a world where the adults with authority, the politicians, the bosses, the institutions, kept failing. So Gen X built their own metric. Can you actually do the thing? Not talk about it, not manage it, do it. If you can, they'll follow you through fire. If you can't, they'll smile politely and ignore everything you say. I was this way too, by the way, not because I'm Gen X. I'm old enough to be their grandfather, but because I was a tradesman. In my world, the only credential that mattered was the shoe. Could you make a good shoe? Could you fix a broken heel so it held? I didn't care where you went to school or what your father did. Show me the work. The work doesn't lie. Whatever generation you are, build real skills, things you can demonstrate, not just describe. The world is full of people who can talk about competence. The people who can show it are rarer, and they're the ones who sleep well at night. Truth number 10. They are the bridge, and bridges don't get thanked. Gen X built the internet, not the social media version, the infrastructure, the protocols, the code, the architecture. They were the first generation to use email, to build websites, to figure out how to turn a blinking cursor on a DOS screen into a business. They translated the analog world for the digital one. They're the reason your phone works, and most of them are too busy updating your IT systems to get credit for it. They're also the bridge between the boomers and the millennials, which means they get yelled at from both directions. The boomers think they're too casual. The millennials think they're too rigid. Gen X just stands in the middle, taking hits from both sides, keeping the lights on. They're managing the boomer boss who won't retire and mentoring the millennial employee who wants a purpose statement before they'll answer an email. And they're doing both with the same tired patience, the same dark humor, the same refusal to complain about it. I know what it feels like to be the bridge. I was the bridge between my father's world and my children's world. He came from Napoli with $40 and a bag of tools. My son became a lawyer in Manhattan. I was the generation that translated one world into the other. And nobody ever sat me down and said, "Thank you for carrying us across." That's not a complaint. That's just the truth. Bridges don't get plaques. They get walked on. And they hold anyway. I'm 106 years old. I've watched 5 generations come through my shop. The greatest generation, the silent generation, the boomers, Gen X, the millennials. I've fixed shoes for all of them. And I'll tell you something that might surprise you. The generation I worry about most isn't the one everybody's focused on. It's not the kids on TikTok. It's not the boomers fighting about politics. It's Gen X, because they're the ones who won't tell you when they're drowning. They'll make a joke about it. They'll pour a drink. They'll handle it until they can't. If you're Gen X, I see you, an old man in Brooklyn who has no business being on the internet, sees you. You were left alone too young. You built yourself from scratch. You don't trust the system, and you're right not to. You're funny and tough and private and exhausted, and you're not going to ask for help because you never have. Ask anyway. Not because you're weak, because you've been strong for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to let someone else carry something. And that's not toughness anymore. That's just loneliness with better posture. The kid with the key around his neck deserved somebody checking on him. You still do. And to everyone else, if you have a Gen Xer in your life, a parent, a sibling, a friend, a co-worker who seems like they've got it all handled, check on them. Don't ask if they're fine. They'll say yes. Ask them something real. Ask them how they're sleeping. Ask them when they last did something just for themselves. Sit with them and don't let them make a joke about it. They've been waiting for someone to do that since they were 9 years old. Go call someone who matters. Not a text, a call. Hear their voice. Let them hear yours. Arrivederci.